Cleaner lady's baby clings to millionaire. The headline should have been impossible. But here in the Thompson Industries executive suite, the drama was real. 5 men in expensive suits were staring. But all their eyes were on a young woman named Kesha Washington, age 22, and her 18-month-old daughter Zoe. Zoe was screaming, a desperate, high-pitched wail that echoed off the mahogany walls. Kesha held her tight, her hands trembling. How did this woman get past security with a child? The voice was a thunderclap. It belonged to Derek Thompson, CEO, and a man who thought his world was chaos-proof. He slammed his fist down. Call security. Now. Kesha worked in this building for 2 years. Always at night. Always invisible. A silent ghost. No one knew her name. Tonight, she had made a choice that could cost her everything. The nanny had bailed for the 3rd time this month. Kesha was 3 weeks late on rent. She had to take the shift. Sir, I can explain, Kesha started, her voice a thin wire. My sitter called in sick. I had no one. She'll be quiet, I promise. Quiet. Michael Thompson, Derek's son and the company's smug vice president, sneered. She's been screaming for 5 minutes. Do you think this is a daycare? What they didn't know was that Zoe wasn't just crying. Zoe had a strange, primitive fear of strangers. She screamed at everyone. Doctors, neighbors, even new babysitters. But then, the most impossible thing happened. James Thompson, Derek's quiet, younger brother, was sitting in the corner. He was 35, the minority partner, always in his aggressive brother's shadow. Zoe stopped crying, her dark, frightened eyes scanning the room. Her gaze landed on James. In a silence so deep you could hear the air conditioning, the baby stretched out her arms toward the stranger. What the hell? Michael muttered, confused. Kesha froze. In 18 months, Zoe had never done this. She had never, not once, voluntarily gone to a stranger. James stood, moving instinctively, and picked up the child. The crying stopped. Zoe nestled her head into his shoulder, like she had just found the safest harbor in the world. That is highly irregular, Derek muttered, frowning. Kids usually run from James. He's no good with them. But as Zoe tugged lightly on James's brown hair, he made a surprised, gentle noise. And Zoe let out a high-pitched, joyful giggle, a sound she had never made in the presence of any other stranger. It was in that moment, as James lowered his head to smile at the child, that Kesha saw it, the crescent-shaped birthmark on the back of Zoe's neck. It was identical to a small, white scar James had in the exact same spot. Kesha's world stopped spinning. Mr. Thompson, Kesha said, her voice now a low, dangerous whisper. We need to talk. Right now. The tension in the room was thicker than any silence Kesha had ever known. She felt the eyes of 5 wealthy men dissecting her. But she didn't flinch. She had spent 2 years in the darkness of their world. She knew their flaws better than they knew their own accounts. Derek leaned back, his fingers tapping. So, Kesha, is it? Tell me, where is the child's father? His voice was dangerously soft, the tone of a predator closing in. He's not part of our lives, Kesha said carefully. Michael laughed his dry, arrogant laugh. Let me guess. Took off when he heard the word pregnant. Classic. His words were a gut punch because they were true, but they were also a lie. Kesha wasn't just a cleaner. 2 years ago, she was a bright business intern in this very building. A promising student, until she met James Thompson at a company event. He was kind, introverted, the opposite of his arrogant family. The secret romance had been her everything. Until that morning. James, she had whispered, showing him the positive test. We're going to be parents. The mask fell instantly. The kind man vanished. This can't happen. My father will destroy me. The company, the reputation. Then came the knife. This was a mistake. Get rid of it. When she refused, he didn't just disappear. He used his influence to have her fired under the guise of budget cuts. Kesha lost her internship, her college tuition, and her future. The only work she could find was as a night cleaner in the one place she never wanted to see again. Cleaning James's office. But now, watching James hold Zoe with a tenderness he had abandoned 2 years ago, Kesha felt a new, cold resolve. This wasn't just pain anymore. This was a weapon. Actually, Kesha said, her voice ringing out with a new, surprising authority. There's one thing you need to know about Zoe's father. Derek leaned forward, hooked. Oh, really? And what would that be? Kesha looked straight at James. The exact moment of recognition hit him. His eyes widened. He gripped Zoe tighter, a gesture of protection, but also of fear. He works here, Kesha stated simply. The silence that followed was absolute. Michael stared at James, then back at Kesha. James? Do you know this woman? James opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Zoe chose that moment to wake up. When James tried to gently return her to Kesha, the baby buried her face in his suit jacket, refusing to let go. Genetic memory in action. James! Derek's voice was now sharp, laced with menace. I asked you a question. Kesha watched them. The way Derek controlled James. The way Michael scorned him. She had always seen James as her betrayer, but now she saw something else. A victim. Perhaps he hadn't abandoned her. Perhaps he had been forced. I don't know what she's talking about, James finally choked out. Derek stood, a predator scenting blood. James, are you sure? Dad, why are we wasting time? Michael cut in, impatient. This cleaning lady is obviously trying to run a scam. She chose James because he's the softest target. The word softest was delivered with pure contempt. Kesha smiled, a slow, cold expression. You're right, Michael. I targeted James. She walked closer to the table, pulling out her phone. But not in the way you think. Do you want to see something interesting? I have the messages James sent me 2 years ago. Derek frowned. What messages? Kesha opened the screen and began to read aloud, her voice steady and clear. Kesha, my father found out about us. He said if I don't break up with you immediately, he will kick me out of the company and his will. I can't lose everything I've built. You have to understand. James closed his eyes, his face pale. Kesha continued, swiping the screen. My lawyer says if you try to sue me for child support, my father has enough resources to prove the child isn't mine. You will never win against the Thompson family. Forget this ever happened. Michael looked between his father and James, alarm growing. Wait, you knew about the pregnancy 2 years ago. Derek remained stone-faced, but Kesha saw the panic behind his eyes. The calculating mind was working overtime. But this, Kesha said, her confidence now absolute, is the best one. She cleared her throat dramatically and read the final text. Sent from Derek Thompson's corporate cell phone to James. You're an idiot, James. Allowing this situation to get this far shows exactly why you'll never lead this company. Fix this now or find another place to work. No sentimental nonsense. Business is business. Derek's mask shattered. The calculating coldness was exposed. Where did you get that message? He growled. James showed it to me, Kesha said, looking at James, who nodded almost imperceptibly, tears starting to stream down his cheeks as Zoe slept, oblivious. He cried when he showed me. He said he felt like a coward. Dad, is this true? Michael's voice cracked. You knew James had a daughter and you blackmailed him to walk away? Difficult decisions must be made to protect the family and the company. Derek spat out. Protect the family? Kesha laughed, a raw, bitter sound. You abandoned your own innocent granddaughter to protect your reputation. You let her grow up in poverty. She had them. Now for the hammer blow. Kesha opened a new folder on her phone. This is a photo of Zoe's birth certificate. Look at the line for the father's name. Everyone leaned in. The line was blank. It's blank because I waited 3 days in the maternity ward, hoping James would show up, Kesha explained. But do you know what did arrive? Anonymous flowers from James, with a card that said, I'm sorry. I love her, but I can't. James was sobbing silently now, rocking Zoe. And you know what else I have? Kesha pulled a stack of bank statements from her bag and slapped them on the table. These are bank records showing anonymous transfers appearing in my account whenever Zoe got sick, or when I posted a sad picture of her online. From James's personal account, $500 for pneumonia, $1,000 on her first birthday. Michael picked up a statement. He was trying to take care of his daughter, in secret. Derek's face was dark with rage. James, you are pathetic, going against my direct orders, spending money on this mistake. This mistake has a name, Kesha interrupted, her voice steel. Her name is Zoe Thompson. She is your granddaughter, Derek, and she deserves a family. That child is not a Thompson, Derek roared, and she never will be. At that moment, the door to the office opened. A tall man in a tailored suit, black with gray hair, walked in. He had an aura of calm, overwhelming authority. I apologize for the intrusion, the man said, his voice deep and smooth. I am Marcus Williams from Williams & Associates. I am here representing Ms. Kesha Washington. Derek stared in disbelief. How did you get in here? Your secretary let me in when I mentioned the words paternity and corporate liability involving Thompson Industries, Marcus replied calmly, setting his briefcase down. Kesha felt a wave of relief. Marcus was a renowned civil rights attorney who had agreed to represent her pro bono. She had spent the last week gathering every piece of evidence, every message, every bank record. She wasn't just a cleaning lady anymore. She was a strategist. Mr. Williams, Derek began, trying to regain his footing. The information is quite accurate and very well documented, Marcus interrupted, opening his briefcase. Ms. Washington has been thorough. We have evidence of parental neglect, family manipulation, and, most critically, evidence that Thompson Industries used corporate resources, emails, employee positions to cover up a personal paternity issue. This is a massive misuse of corporate resources, Mr. Thompson. Michael looked terrified. Dad, what kind of legal trouble is this? And there's more, Marcus added, pulling out a document. Ms. Washington has a very reasonable proposal to resolve this civilly. Derek straightened, feeling back on familiar ground. Negotiation. What kind of proposal? Kesha stepped forward, standing directly in front of the CEO. I want 3 things, she stated. First, official legal recognition of paternity for Zoe Thompson, with all rights. Second, retroactive child support from her date of birth. And third, she paused, looking him directly in the eye. I want my job back, not as a cleaner, as Director of Human Resources, with a salary and benefits appropriate for a Thompson. The silence returned. Derek laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. You're insane. Actually, Marcus countered smoothly. Considering the evidence, this is an extraordinarily generous proposal. The alternative is a public lawsuit involving allegations of racial discrimination, child neglect, and corporate fraud. Marcus pulled out a final document. I've taken the liberty of preparing a press release, just in case. He read the headline, Multimillionaire CEO forces son to abandon black employee's baby. Derek read the first few lines and paled. He had utterly underestimated the woman who had spent 2 years cleaning his filth. While they thought she was sweeping floors, Kesha was studying labor laws, parental rights, and Thompson Industries' weakest ethical points. She turned 2 years of invisibility into the perfect weapon. So, Mr. Thompson, Kesha said, her voice now calm, authoritative, and utterly devoid of fear. Civilly, or in tomorrow's national headlines? Derek looked at the press release, then at Kesha. The fear was real now. You wouldn't do that, he whispered. I already have, Kesha replied, pulling out her phone. The press release was sent to 15 media outlets exactly 10 minutes ago. It goes live tomorrow morning. Unless, Derek croaked. Unless James signs the paternity papers now, Kesha finished. And you sign my promotion to HR director with a salary of $150,000 a year. Michael started to protest, but Marcus opened his laptop, showing the city's largest newspaper website with a draft of the story already staged. The headline read, CEO forced son to abandon granddaughter due to racial prejudice. 2 years, Kesha said, her voice a slow, deliberate burn. 2 years I cleaned these offices while you treated me like furniture. 2 years I collected every email, every conversation, every transaction. I had access to your systems at night. I saw everything. This is blackmail. Derek sputtered, sweating profusely. No, Marcus corrected. This is documented justice. James, who had remained silent, finally stood, holding the sleeping Zoe. Enough, he said, his voice firm for the first time. Dad, this is over. I'm signing the paternity acknowledgement right now. He looked at his father. Are you going to fire me? I'll make it easy. I quit and I'm taking half our biggest clients with me. They'll follow me, not you. Derek Thompson, the great empire builder, realized he was completely cornered by the woman he had deemed beneath notice. 30 minutes later, the documents were signed. One last thing, Kesha said, gently taking Zoe back from James's arms. I didn't do this for the money or the title. I did it because my daughter deserves to grow up knowing her mother fought for her dignity. Derek Thompson stared at the new HR director, Kesha Washington, and the little girl sleeping safely in her arms. He had underestimated her intelligence. He had underestimated her pain. And he had turned 2 years of humiliation into the most brilliant, most satisfying revenge he had ever seen. 6 months later, Kesha Washington sat in her corner office on the 15th floor. The company sign outside had a new name, Washington and Thompson Family Holdings. James was now the majority shareholder. Derek had been forced to retire for health reasons after several internal reports of discrimination surfaced. Michael found himself with no power and no influence. Mommy working, Zoe babbled happily from her playpen, stacking colorful blocks next to Kesha's sleek, modern desk. James appeared at the door with 2 lattes. How's our chief strategist today? Over the past months, they hadn't rekindled the old romance, but they had built something stronger, a respectful co-parenting partnership centered on Justice and Zoe. Derek called again, James said, handing her the coffee. He wants to visit his granddaughter. Kesha took a sip, looking at Zoe, who was laughing. Maybe, Kesha replied, a slight smirk touching her lips, when he learns that privilege is earned, not inherited. The transformation was complete. The invisible cleaner now ran the meetings where she once cleaned the tables. The woman who had been fired for being pregnant now decided the maternity leave policies. The true victory was Zoe growing up in a world where her mother would never be invisible again, where intelligence was valued, where fighting for justice wasn't revenge, but the purest form of dignity. Derek Thompson tried to destroy a young mother to save his reputation. Today, he lives alone, his empire crumbling, while Kesha builds the future her daughter deserves. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a world where they become irrelevant. What about you? Have you ever had to turn injustice into opportunity? Share your story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove true strength lies in turning pain into power, invisibility into influence, and prejudice into progress.